Good afternoon, America. I'm Eric Erickson. It's August 7th, and these are the four things you need to know this afternoon. We live in times when the headlines scream at us, but often miss the deeper currents running beneath the surface. Today, I want to talk to you about four stories that matter, not because they confirm what we believe, but because they challenge us to think clearly about where we are as a nation and in the world. So, let me tell you the four things happening right now you need to know this afternoon before you get home. Up first, the manufacturing issue. It's the first thing you need to know about. It's a promise that isn't being kept, not for lack of trying, perhaps, but because the world is more complicated than campaign slogans suggest. Donald Trump promised to restore manufacturing in the United States. He campaigned on it twice. He won twice, in part because of it. Here's what the data shows. Even as President Trump has spiked tariffs to levels unseen in nearly a century, the manufacturing sector has lost jobs in recent months, and consumer uncertainty and labor shortages are leading manufacturing to slow hiring and reduce output instead of increasing it. Now, before you write me off as never Trump or something, Lord knows I've been called worse, just hear me out. This is what the data says. The tariffs were supposed to protect American manufacturing, and actually, material costs for U.S. manufacturing are going up. They're eroding competitive advantages and increasing production challenges in the United States right now. This is Economics 101. This isn't spin. When you make the raw materials more expensive for American companies, you don't magically make them more competitive. You make them less competitive. Since President Trump took office, at least 34 factories or mineral refineries totaling more than $30 billion in investment have been paused, delayed, or canceled. Now, you want to help American workers, you've got to make policies that actually help the workers, not policies that sound good in a tweet, but actually hurt them in practice. Manufacturing is hard. It requires skilled workers, consistent supply chains, and competitive costs. You can't tweet your way out of a manufacturing renaissance. You can't tariff your way out of this. What you need to do is create conditions where American ingenuity and productivity can flourish. But that requires more than slogans. Apple and Corning might be showing us a way in Kentucky where they're expanding operations in the country. Now, the second thing you need to know is, well, about what's happening in Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, and it might be making decisions that could be costly to Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu announced Israel plans to take control of the entire Gaza Strip, calling for an unprecedented attack on Hamas. I've been a supporter of Israel my entire life. I believe in Israel's right to self defense, to exist, to pursue those who would destroy it, and I want to kill Hamas too. But I also believe in being honest about what our allies are doing and whether it serves our interests and theirs. Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly told ministers this week he's going to seek cabinet backing for a plan to fully occupy Gaza, despite objections from within the Israeli Defense Force that seem spread thin. When your own military is expressing concerns, that should at least give you pause to examine it. The question every American should be asking is this: does a full occupation of Gaza make Israel safer? Does it make us safer? Does it advance the cause of peace and stability in a region that has been known for, well, precious little peace and security? I don't actually have the answers to these questions, but I know this. When Israel stops listening to the generals and starts making decisions that a lot of the biggest supporters of the government warn against, it's time for some hard conversations. Benjamin Netanyahu's gamble is not just lacking military support, it lacks broad support from an Israeli people who have largely united around Benjamin Netanyahu over the issue of Gaza and Hamas. He's got to tread a little carefully here and maybe just slow down and ask some more questions. The third thing you need to know is happening in South Carolina, where a congresswoman is teaching us the difference between talking tough and actually being tough. Nancy Mace held what she called the mother of all town halls, where she said she'd debate anyone and go into the lion's den. And the people who disagreed with her at the rally, they were asked to leave the venue. Mace's staff and volunteers handed out campaign signs at the door and asked several people who came with signs and t-shirts reflecting their opposition to Mace, including someone wearing a Love is Love shirt, to leave before Nancy Mace's remarks began. Now, Representative Mace calls herself Trump in high heels, but here's the thing about courage. Real courage doesn't need to screen the audience first. When a couple, the Hunts, didn't clap during her remarks, they felt pressure to leave. I didn't clap and I booed something, and the woman in front of me turned around and said, "What are you doing here?" Says Kathy Hunt, an independent. Now, her husband's a Democrat. They're not going to support Mace, but they showed up at the rally, and Nancy Mace said everybody's welcome and she'll debate anybody, but she didn't want them there. And these people were pressured to leave. This isn't how democracy actually works, friends, when you're saying that you'll debate anyone at any time and you're Trump in high heels. This is how conservatives should actually behave. We should be people who relish free speech and open debate in the marketplace of ideas. We're supposed to be confident enough in our convictions to defend them in front of a hostile audience instead of saying we welcome a hostile audience while making sure there isn't one. Nancy Mace said everyone has a First Amendment right to attend her events, but she wasn't aware that others were pressured to exit, rather. That's what she's saying. That's the problem right here. You can't claim to be a champion of free speech while your staff is policing T-shirts and applause lines. Mace likewise insisted she's not just a candidate of memes, but she's a serious member of Congress. Unfortunately, when you have to insist to people that you're a serious person, you probably aren't. In Nancy Mace's case, she has hidden behind the speech and debate clause to attack her opponents with potentially libelous allegations that she's refused to repeat off the floor of the House where she could be sued. She's cast herself as both a victim and a fighter. In a great irony, Nancy Mace, who came to fame by forcing the Citadel to accept women, now fights to keep boys out of girls' sports. I'm with her on that fight, except her first foray into the public limelight made possible the very thing she now says she's against. And by the way, she wasn't always against it either. The fourth thing you need to know is the one you're least likely to hear about anywhere else. It's happening in Africa. It should break your heart. It should steal your resolve. ISIS-aligned soldiers in Mozambique are slaughtering Christians. They're beheading them, burning churches and homes, and counterterrorism experts are saying this is a silent genocide. The Islamic State Mozambique province recently released 20 photos boasting of 4 attacks on Christian villages in the Chir district, showing ISIS operatives raiding villages, burning a church and homes, with images depicting the beheadings of Christians. Alberto Miguel Fernandez from the Middle East Media Research Institute told Fox News, what we see in Africa today is a kind of silent genocide or silent, brutal, savage war that's occurring in the shadows and all too often ignored by the international community. At least 45 people have been killed in a July 27th attack against the Christian village of Komanda in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Islamic State-affiliated soldiers opened fire at a Catholic church and set fire to homes, stores, vehicles, and possessions. Here's what gets me in all of this. We spend billions of dollars and countless hours debating pronouns and bathroom policies and whether somebody's feelings got hurt on social media, whether or not Sydney Sweeney's jeans ads are appropriate. Christians in Africa are being targeted for elimination. The goal is being the elimination of Christian communities, in the words of ISIS. And they push this down into safe havens where Christians are supposed to be safe. The United Nations Migration Agency said attacks by insurgents in Mozambique have displaced more than 46,000 people in 8 days last month. Nearly 60% of them are children. But you're not seeing a single damn celebrity from Hollywood tweeting about this. You won't see college students holding rallies. You don't see politicians giving speeches about the silent genocide because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't generate clicks. If it's made up stuff in Gaza, they're all over it. But if it's real stuff in Africa, they're silent. It's happening to Christians. We're witnessing evil, pure, unadulterated evil that thrives in the shadows while the world looks the other way. That's what's going on out there. Do you care enough about your brothers and sisters in Christ to pay attention? Do you care enough to demand action? Do you care enough to pray, to give, to speak up? Or do we just change the channel? There you have it. 4 things to know this afternoon: a manufacturing policy that's not working, an ally making dangerous choices, a politician who talks tough but acts weak, and a genocide that's being ignored by all the people claiming genocide in Gaza and more. None of these stories fits neatly into our preferred narratives. None of them make anyone look particularly good, but all of them matter because they're all connected to a single thread: the difference between what we say and what we do, between what we promise and what we deliver, between what we claim and care about and what we actually act upon. The truth isn't always convenient, but the truth is always necessary. I'm Eric Erickson. Thanks for listening to the 4 things you need to know this afternoon. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/EW Erickson. As always, stay informed, stay engaged. Please keep the faith.